So good morning from Phnom Penh, and we're just about to go to Starbucks before quite a depressing day probably, because we're going to visit the old genocide prison and then go over to the killing fields to look at some of the terrible history of this country during the Khmer Rouge between 1975 and 1979. But we thought we'd just cheer ourselves up with a Starbucks coffee before we go to any of that. Just passing by the river which we were on yesterday. Starbucks, 2 minutes. Look at that.
So elaborate, aren't they?
Made it. So we've got the coffees. So Lynn's working out the entrance prices. But I'll tell you something I've noticed about Phnom Penh. It's not cheap. This is probably one of the most expensive Starbucks I've ever had.
Isn't it $8?
Yeah. And just the whole place is expensive. Everything's priced in either US dollars, but then you get your change in this Cambodian real. But yeah, everything is much more expensive than I thought it would be. Just watch out for that. It's just an expensive place to be. Even just going to a grocery shop and just buying like some water and stuff, it's like...
I just bought some sandwich yesterday and it was $15.
Yeah, expensive. So we've ordered a Grab tuk-tuk and it's going to cost about $2 rather than the $40 they were trying to charge. Hello. That was easy, because if you get one of the ones from the hotel, they're charging an extortionate amount.
Like 10 times more than
10 times more.
Supposed to cost.
So get a SIM card, download the Grab app, and you too could do this. So we are here. Used to be a former school, high school, and then it was one of the detention centres of the Khmer Rouge. Thank you. It's for $5 each. Let's go and see some of the horrors. You can see the sort of schoolishness of the buildings. Then it became the interrogation centre. I was reading 20,000 people passed through this complex, and at any one time there's been 1,000 and 1,500 people, and most of them stayed between 2 and 3 months. Not many of them were killed here. They were sent to the killing fields, which we're going to later. And I think of all the people who came through, only 12 of them survived. One was a guy who was really good at painting, and he painted portraits of Pol Pot. Another guy, I think he was an expert at fixing machinery, like sewing machines, so he survived. Answer questions, don't lie, sit still, don't speak, follow the rules. If you don't, you get lashes with electric wire. So Pol Pot wanted to start with year zero. He wanted to get rid of ownership. People had to just be farmers. So people who were against that, obviously the intellectuals, the teachers, professionals, they had to be re-educated, which means they were brought here and tortured. They had to name members of their family, and then they were tortured, and then they were sent off to the killing fields, and they usually killed on that very day when they arrived in the killing fields. Sad history. A quarter of the population of Cambodia were wiped out in those few years, 4 years. I think that this actually happened, because there's the window, actually happened in this room. It's horrible. This happened, that happened in this room. So it's saying here, upon arrival, prisoners were photographed and then they had to give a detailed autobiography. Then they were forced to strip, their possessions confiscated, they were taken to their cells, shackled to walls or the floor. They were held in mass shells, some of them with shackles pressed against their ankles. They slept on floors without mats, mosquito nets. They were not allowed to talk to each other, and their day began at 4:30 a.m. Not nice, is it? Horrendous. Look at the view now. You get this high rise. None of that would have been there then. Horrible place. How young these look. Kids. Room after room, just horrible photographs. Celine was just saying, because she's been to Hiroshima in Japan, and she said it's just so calm and peaceful there now, despite the horrors of the past. It's like this here. So these are the tombs of the last 14 victims in this place. I'm guessing they must be the ones in those photographs. Nobody knows who they are. Look at this instrument that they're all sort of going to be leaning against. It's actually over there. And here are the cells. Tiny, aren't they? Shackled in here, imagine. No mosquito net. Not allowed to speak. It's sort of something that needs to be done, doesn't it, if you're in Phnom Penh, as grim as it is. But now the context has been set for that. We're going to get another tuk-tuk. It's about a 30-minute drive to where they were all executed. Second tuk-tuk of the day. It's going to cost $4. So that was about 30 minutes and we're here. You ready for it? Let's go.
Ready as you can be.
So we're going to start with the museum. But yeah, this is where they were brought, all the people. And at first they were shot, but then the bullets were too expensive, so they just started whacking them with spades and axes and things like that. It says here 129 mass graves were unearthed. Nearly 9,000 corpses found. And there's a stupa in the middle with the skulls. We'll see that later. This guy here, he was the chief of that prison we visited earlier, and during his trial he's the only one who actually expressed any remorse. The other 4 leaders didn't even acknowledge that it happened. So he died aged 77 in prison of COVID. Can you believe that? So back in the time, music would have been blaring from speakers to mask out the sounds of the screaming and all of the killing going on, and just thousands of people coming over and over. But look at it now, it just looks like a nice countryside, doesn't it? Fragments in their bones, Jesus. 17,000 men, women and children and 9 Westerners were brought here to be executed. It's called the Killing Field because of a film that was made, quite a famous one. It says when they were brought here they were told that they were going to be transferred somewhere else. This is to prevent them, you know, obviously panicking and screaming and crying, but they were killed that day. That's where they used to whack the kids against that to kill them. Chuck them in here with where they found 100 victims, women and children, most naked. Now we're going to go inside the pagoda, or try to. It's full with thousands of skulls. It's horrible. Just got like this sort of shaped hole. I reckon someone's just got that and gone. I think we should go back into the city now and just relax and yeah, anyway, that's what it was like here.